Bloodsport began where truth tapped out and legend stepped in. It was the movie that believed its own legend and paid for it in blood. But behind the kicks and the chaos, it was pain forged into glory, a secret tournament no one could prove, and a fighter no one could find. A film forged by outsiders betting everything on one man's myth, and punches that landed harder than the facts ever did. These are 20 weird facts about Bloodsport, and hidden inside the sweat and the story, it was rumor turned religion, a lie that learned how to fight. The myth hit harder, and it never stopped swinging. Number 1. Every great fight movie has its illusion, but Bloodsport had a knockout that was no illusion at all. During the film's climactic match, Jean-Claude Van Damme's flying elbow connected with co-star Bernard Mariano's jaw harder than anyone expected. The impact was instant. Mariano hit the mat unconscious. A real fighter felled by a fake fight. The crew froze. Then someone yelled to keep rolling. No stuntman, no retake. Just one brutal accident that looked too perfect to cut. Van Damme helped Mariano up afterward, apologizing between takes, but the damage was done and immortalized. When audiences saw it on screen, they swore it was the most realistic knockout ever filmed. They were right. The pain was real, the fall was real, and for one surreal moment, Bloodsport lived up to its name. Number 2. In Bloodsport, what you saw wasn't movie magic. It was muscle and pain, filmed in real time. Director Newt Arnold wanted the kumite to feel raw, so instead of hiring Hollywood stuntmen, he filled the arena with actual fighters. Every background brawler you see, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Sumo, kickboxing, came from the real circuit, not a casting call. Paulo Tocha, the Muay Thai powerhouse who kicks like a sledgehammer, was a legitimate champion and one of the first Westerners to train in Thailand. Michel Kesey, Van Damme's friend and dojo partner from Belgium, joined him as both fighter and choreographer before becoming Tong Po in Kickboxer. No wires, no slow motion cheats, just fighters doing what they'd trained their whole lives to do. Every punch had weight, every bruise was earned. Bloodsport didn't imitate combat, it lived it, one real strike at a time. Number 3. When Bloodsport wrapped, the studio took one look and hated it. Producer Menahem Golan called it unreleasable and shelved it for 2 years, certain it would die unseen. But Jean-Claude Van Damme refused to let go. He begged for access to the footage, convinced there was something great buried under bad editing. With editor Michael J. Duthie, he spent weeks recutting the film himself, tightening scenes, trimming filler, and shaping the fights into rhythmic, hypnotic motion. When Golan saw the new cut, everything changed. He ordered a theatrical release, and against every prediction, the movie exploded. For Van Damme, it wasn't just a career breakthrough, it was a rescue mission. The fighter who refused to quit on screen had just saved his own legend off it. Number 4. Long before CGI worlds, Bloodsport found its arena inside one of Earth's strangest real places, Hong Kong's Kowloon walled city. A labyrinth of crumbling towers and neon corridors, Kowloon was a lawless micronation. No police, no sunlight, and no rules. Locals called it the City of Darkness. The crew smuggled cameras inside to film the kumite's shadowy alleys and rooftops. It was dangerous, filthy, and unforgettable. Somehow, no one was hurt, and no gear was stolen. A miracle in a place once ruled by triads. 6 years later, Kowloon was demolished, but its ghost lives on in Bloodsport, a cinematic time capsule of a world too chaotic to survive, and too perfect for fiction to ever improve. Number 5. When filming began in Hong Kong, something looked off. Jean-Claude Van Damme's kumite outfit, shiny silk pajamas and bright colors, made him look more like a tourist than a champion. According to Frank Dux, the real-life fighter who inspired the film, he couldn't stand it. With the budget nearly gone, Dux claimed he called his wife in the US and had her ship over authentic martial arts uniforms. Then, using scraps of fabric and even a pair of bicycle shorts, he redesigned Van Damme's final look himself. The studio didn't care who fixed it, only that it looked right. And by the time the camera rolled, Van Damme's black sash and shorts had become iconic. Whether Dux's story is truth or tall tale hardly matters now. What's certain is that Bloodsport found its style the same way it found its legend, by fighting for it. Number 6. Before Jean-Claude Van Damme made Bloodsport a global phenomenon, he wasn't even the studio's first choice. Cannon Films had another name in mind, Michael Dudikoff, the clean-cut star of American Ninja and one of Cannon's go-to action heroes. On paper, he was perfect. Loyal to the studio, proven at the box office, and already trained in martial arts choreography. But something didn't click. Dudikoff later claimed producers told him he was too tall for the part, though insiders whispered it was more about style than height. Dudikoff looked like a soldier. Bloodsport needed a showman. That's when Van Damme walked in. Unknown, broke, and desperate to prove himself, he approached producer Menahem Golan in a Los Angeles restaurant, performed a spinning heel kick that stopped just short of Golan's nose, and held the pose. The stunned producer grinned and hired him on the spot. His pay? Around $25,000. In that single moment, the film's destiny changed. Dudikoff would go on to other canon projects, but Bloodsport belonged to Van Damme. His fluid style, his charisma, and that impossible balance between grace and power turned what could have been another B-action flick into a cult legend. One kick, one gamble, one legend born out of someone else's missed shot. Number 7. Before Bloodsport, Jean-Claude Van Damme was just another dreamer with a black belt and an empty wallet. He'd left Belgium with nothing but a gym bag and a promise to make it big. In Los Angeles, he lived out of his car, worked odd jobs, and spent his nights sneaking into gyms to train. Casting directors laughed at his accent. Studios dismissed his optimism, but Van Damme kept showing up, smiling, stretching, and kicking through every locked door Hollywood slammed in his face. Then came Bloodsport. A low-budget Canon Films project that no one expected to matter became his proving ground. Every strike, every slow-motion split, every gleam of sweat on that underground stage turned him from a broke martial artist into a global icon. Overnight, the Muscles from Brussels wasn't just a nickname, it was a brand. One film didn't just change his career, it built the legend that every kickboxer, every dreamer, and every underdog still believes in today. Number 8. Frank Dux wasn't just the supposed inspiration for Bloodsport. He helped choreograph the fights that made it unforgettable. Working with director Newt Arnold, Dux designed each matchup like a real tournament, emphasizing different fighting styles and cultural influences. The results were fast, brutal, and oddly elegant. A ballet of bruises that felt more authentic than any Hollywood brawl of the time. Even skeptics of Dux's so-called kumite past admitted the choreography was stunning. Every stance, block, and slow-motion knockout was captured with precision and rhythm, selling the myth as something almost believable. Dux may not have fought in a secret underground tournament, but he made millions believe he had, one perfectly staged punch at a time. Number 9. Bloodsport didn't just sell punches and spin kicks, it sold a legend. The film proudly opened with the claim that it was based on a true story, inspired by martial artist Frank Dux, who said he fought in a secret underground tournament called the Kumite. Dux told anyone who'd listen that he'd been trained by a mysterious ninja master named Tiger Tanaka, and that he'd defeated 329 fighters without ever losing a match. It sounded incredible, maybe too incredible. When reporters started digging, the story began to crumble. There were no photos of the Kumite, no witnesses, and no verifiable records. Even Dux's military background, which he claimed included covert missions in Southeast Asia, didn't hold up. Official documents showed he'd never served overseas. The Tiger Tanaka he spoke of? A character straight out of the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice. Confronted with the inconsistencies, Dux didn't back down. He called it all a government cover-up meant to discredit him. To fans, that only deepened the mystery. Whether master manipulator or misunderstood warrior, Dux's myth became inseparable from the movie's appeal. True or not, his story turned Bloodsport into something bigger than fact, a legend built on belief. Number 10. After Frank Dux's wild tales of secret tournaments and shadowy masters caught Hollywood's ear, one man decided to give them shape. Screenwriter Sheldon Lettich met Dux in Los Angeles and found him impossible to ignore. Charming, intense, and armed with stories too cinematic to dismiss. Lettich wasn't sure if they were true, but he was sure they were good. He began shaping them into what would become Bloodsport, turning Dux's whispered legend into a screenplay that felt half confession, half fever dream. Still, even Lettich needed proof, so Dux brought him evidence, photos, trophies, even a supposed eyewitness named Richard Bender, who swore he'd seen the Kumite himself. That illusion held just long enough to sell the movie. Years later, Bender admitted he'd never been there at all. He'd only repeated what Dux told him to say. By then, the myth had already taken root. Bloodsport wasn't journalism, it was faith on film. Lettich didn't just write a movie about belief, he became part of it, turning one man's fantasy into the most famous true story martial arts would ever tell. Number 11. Before Frank Dux ever stepped into the ring, Bloodsport paused for one of the longest flashbacks in action movie history. The sequence tracing young Dux's training under Master Senzo Tanaka lasts nearly 11 minutes, a lifetime by 80s pacing standards. But what could have dragged instead became the emotional spine of the movie. Through those quiet scenes, we see the bond between student and master, the promise to honor a fallen friend, and the discipline that would later define every fight. Director Newt Arnold used those moments to ground the spectacle in something deeper: respect, loss, and duty. In a film filled with sweat and speed, it's the slowest sequence that hits the hardest. Number 12. Frank Dux never missed a chance to turn life into legend. During the filming of Bloodsport, he claimed that he and Jean-Claude Van Damme nearly came to blows. Not on set, but 60 stories up. "I told him to meet me on the roof of the Victoria Hotel," Dux recalled. 18 inches of ledge, the wind in our faces. I spun a full rotation kick and said, "Let's fight right here." According to Dux, Van Damme laughed, called him insane, and took him to dinner instead. No one on the crew ever confirmed the tale, not a photo, not a whisper. But that was Dux's gift. He made fiction sound like memory, and myth feel like confession. Whether it happened or not hardly mattered. By the time he finished telling it, everyone wanted to believe it had. Number 13. It's one of the most unforgettable moments in Bloodsport. Frank Dux steps up to a pyramid of bricks, focuses his breath, and drives his palm down, shattering only the bottom one. The crowd gasps. The judges stare. The mythical Dimmak, or Death Touch, has been unleashed. To audiences in 1988, it looked like forbidden knowledge made real, proof that Dux's power was more than muscle. But the truth was far less mystical. The Dimmak has floated through martial arts folklore for centuries, whispered about in dojos and pulp magazines. A single strike said to stop a man's heart days after impact. No verified demonstration has ever existed. In reality, the effect was pure movie magic. A rigged stack of bricks, clever camera work, and Jean-Claude Van Damme's hypnotic intensity selling every second. The Death Touch might not work in real life, but it did something even rarer. It made audiences believe. For one perfect scene, myth became muscle, and a legend was born with a single strike. Number 14. Bloodsport was born from admiration and ended in accusation. Jean-Claude Van Damme and Frank Dux once trained side by side, dreaming of the perfect martial arts epic. They built Bloodsport together, then chased that success with a new story called The Quest. But when the film finally hit screens, the bond that made it possible shattered. Dux sued Van Damme, claiming he'd stolen the idea from his script Enter the New Dragon, the Kumite. Van Damme denied it, and the court ruled in his favor, but their friendship never recovered. The irony cut deep. Two men who turned myth into legend now locked in a fight over credit and pride. In a way, their feud mirrored the film's roots. Bloodsport had always lived in the shadow of Enter the Dragon, borrowing its secret tournament, its discipline, even its cast. Roy Chow's wise mentor and Bolo Yeung's brute strength echoed Bruce Lee's world, but this time, honor was replaced by spectacle. What Lee began with philosophy, Van Damme finished with fury. And the student didn't just follow the master, he redefined him for a generation raised on VHS and vengeance. Number 15. When Bloodsport hit theaters in 1988, critics lined up to throw punches. They called it cheap, clumsy, even a video store special. But audiences didn't care. They came to feel the fight. Made for just over $2 million, it fought its way to more than $50 million worldwide, powered by word of mouth, muscle, and slow-motion charisma. Then came the real knockout, home video. On VHS, Bloodsport exploded. Rentals turned into rewatches, rewatches into obsession. Stores couldn't keep the tape in stock. By 1989, it was one of America's top sellers. The movie kids played on loop until the ribbons wore thin. Critics rolled their eyes, but the crowd had spoken. Against every odd, Bloodsport went from a forgotten canon gamble to a cult phenomenon. It wasn't just a martial arts flick anymore. It was a badge of honor. A film that bled heart, grit, and sweat, and somehow won the fight no one thought it could. Number 16. Before Mortal Kombat made arcades roar, its creators were chasing a different dream, a Jean-Claude Van Damme video game. Developer Ed Boon and his team wanted to capture Van Damme's movie swagger, basing it loosely on Universal Soldier. But when the deal collapsed, they didn't scrap the idea, they evolved it. The result was Johnny Cage, a cocky Hollywood fighter who threw high kicks, split punches, and wore a sash straight out of Bloodsport. Same initials, same arrogance, same split. Cage became the digital echo of Van Damme's legacy, the bridge between 80s action and 90s arcade mayhem. Even the Bloodsport DNA runs deeper than fans realize. In the film's hotel arcade scene, Van Damme plays Karate Champ, the very game that inspired Mortal Kombat's early mechanics. What began as a failed licensing deal became one of gaming's greatest evolutions. Proof that legends don't die when doors close. They just respawn. Number 17. The final kick didn't end Bloodsport. It multiplied it. Success on VHS spawned a wave of sequels, each trying to capture the same underground magic without Jean-Claude Van Damme. Bloodsport 2. The next Kumite arrived in 1996, introducing Daniel Bernhardt as fighter Alex Cardo. A year later came Bloodsport 3, continuing his journey. But by Bloodsport 4, the Dark Kumite, even the rules had changed. Bernhardt returned as an entirely new character, Agent John Keller, as if the series had entered its own parallel dimension. Budgets shrank, continuity vanished, but the myth survived. Each film carried that same heartbeat: honor, pain, redemption, even when buried under straight-to-video grit. The Kumite had become legend, too big to stay in one movie. Number 18. Before Bloodsport, martial arts movies felt distant, larger-than-life tales about masters in temples or ancient warriors on mountains. But when Jean-Claude Van Damme stepped into the Kumite, everything changed. He wasn't an untouchable monk or a mythic fighter. He was a man who trained, hurt, bled, and earned every strike. Audiences felt that. Across America, dojos saw enrollment skyrocket. Karate, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and ninjutsu classes filled with kids who wanted to stretch like Van Damme, move like him, be him. Parents called it a fad. Instructors called it a miracle. And future MMA champions would later admit it. Bloodsport was their spark. It didn't just entertain, it inspired. One low-budget martial arts movie lit a fire that still burns decades later, proving that sometimes a roundhouse kick on screen can change lives off it. Number 19. Bloodsport made Jean-Claude Van Damme a star, but it was Stan Bush's soundtrack that gave the movie its soul. Known for Transformers: The Touch, Bush delivered two anthems that defined the 80s, Fight to Survive and On My Own, Alone. Every slow-motion kick, every leap through sweat and light hit harder because his music turned it into myth. The songs weren't background, they were battle cries, echoing through gyms, dojos, and living rooms long after the credits rolled. Years later, when Van Damme met Bush at a live show, he laughed and said, "The music was better than the movie." Maybe he was joking, maybe not, because decades later, those songs still punch harder than any kick the Kumite ever saw. Number 20. Frank Dux may have built the myth behind Bloodsport, but he doesn't live inside it. Years later, when asked if he ever rewatched the movie that made him famous, he shook his head. "For me, it's just a memory now," he said quietly. "I don't watch it. I'm proud of it, proud that it inspired so many people. It's a classic that people will still be watching 25 years from now." And he was right. Decades later, Bloodsport still runs on cable marathons, still sells collector Blu-rays, and still recruits new generations of martial arts dreamers. Dux might have walked away from the legend, but the legend never walked away from him. The man may have stopped watching, yet the world never stopped believing. Bonus fact: not every Bloodsport fan wore a black belt. Some wore a suit and tie. In a 1997 New Yorker interview, Donald Trump confessed his guilty pleasure: late-night Bloodsport marathons. He laughed and told the reporter, "Admit it, you're loving this ridiculous Jean-Claude Van Damme movie too." It wasn't irony, it was admiration. Decades before the presidency, Trump was cheering for slow-motion kicks, soaring synths, and Van Damme's perfect spin. Somehow, that felt fitting. An underdog movie adored by a man who built a career on spectacle and defiance. The Kumite had found its most unexpected fan. Bloodsport began as a lie, survived as a miracle, and ended as a myth. It turned a dubious story into a cultural touchstone, a movie that made audiences believe in honor, pain, and the poetry of a perfect kick. It launched Van Damme, inspired Mortal Kombat, and proved that truth matters less than impact. If this film still makes your heart race, drop a comment. Tell us what legendary fight we should step into next, because sometimes a movie doesn't need to be real to hit hard. It just needs to make you believe, for one perfect moment, that courage can break bricks.